The spotlight was a physical weight, hot and blinding, pressing down on me as the thunderous applause washed over the auditorium. On my 28th birthday, I, Vance, stood at the pinnacle of my career, clutching the cold, heavy crystal of the Designer of the Year award. The host's voice boomed through the speakers, extolling the virtues of my latest architectural masterpiece, the Ethelgard Tower. But his words were a distant hum, meaningless noise against the roaring in my ears. My flawless, media-trained smile was a rigid mask, my knuckles white around the trophy's base. My gaze, however, was not on the adoring crowd or the beaming company executives. It was locked onto a dimly lit corner of the grand ballroom, where the champagne flowed and shadows danced. There, partially obscured by a potted fern and the shifting crowd, was my husband of 5 years, Kale Sterling. And with him was the newest, brightest, and most disturbingly beautiful star in our firm's constellation, a junior designer named Lila Rossi, who had been with us for exactly 3 months. I saw it all with a horrifying, crystalline clarity that seemed to freeze time. I saw Kale's hand, which had just moments before rested proprietorially on the small of Lila's back, slide downward. I saw the casual, practiced movement as his fingers slipped beneath the hem of her short, shimmering cocktail dress. I saw the way Lila's body subtly arched into his touch, her head tilting back with a soft, breathy laugh that was swallowed by the ambient noise. I saw the blush that crept up her neck, the way her teeth caught her plump lower lip in a gesture that was anything but shy. And I saw the look in Kale's eyes, a look of undisguised, raw desire that was a brutal foreign currency to me. He had never looked at me that way. The applause for me was still echoing, but it was now the soundtrack to my personal horror show. In that singular, gut-wrenching moment, 1,000 disjointed puzzle pieces from the last few months snapped into a devastating picture. Kale's sudden, incessant late nights at the office. Lila's inexplicable and rapid promotion to lead the prestigious Horizon Residences project, our assignment far beyond her experience. The way her eyes would meet mine across a conference room, not with the deference due to the design director, but with a glint of secret, triumphant knowledge. The faint, unfamiliar floral scent on Kale's jacket last week, which he'd brushed off as a new air freshener in his car. So this is how it is, the thought echoed in the hollowed-out cavern of my mind. This is the price of my ambition, the reward for my trust. The host was still droning on about my design's innovative use of sustainable materials. The audience was still waiting for my acceptance speech. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me, expectant. I lifted the microphone to my lips, the cold metal a shock against my skin. "Thank you," I said, my voice miraculously steady, a smooth, professional instrument that betrayed nothing of the earthquake within. "This is a tremendous honor. I share it with my incredible team, without whom the Ethelgard would never have left the drawing board." It was the standard line, the expected gratitude. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand there for another second and thank the man who was even now violating our vows in a dark corner. The mask was cracking. I had to move. I placed the microphone back on the stand with a quiet thud that sounded deafening in the sudden silence. I stepped down from the stage, ignoring the confused murmur that rippled through the crowd. "Alara? Is everything all right?" the host asked, his voice tinny through the speakers. "She looks pale," someone whispered loudly. "Too much champagne on an empty stomach, probably," another voice speculated. I heard none of it. My world had narrowed to a tunnel at the end of which were Kale and Lila. My high heels clicked a sharp, staccato rhythm on the marble floor, a stark contrast to the soft carpet of the event space. The crowd parted before me, sensing the tectonic shift in the room's energy. The celebration was over. A reckoning had begun. Kale saw me first. His smirk vanished, replaced by a panicked deer-in-headlights expression. His hand jerked back from Lila's skirt as if burned. Lila, following his gaze, flinched and quickly smoothed down her dress, her expression morphing from sultry confidence to a perfect pantomime of wide-eyed innocence. "Darling." Kale's voice was too loud, too hearty, a poor imitation of marital warmth. He stood up, blocking my view of Lila. "That was a wonderful speech. Short and sweet. Why did you come down? The ceremony isn't over yet." He reached for my hand. I recoiled, snatching my arm away as if from a venomous snake. The movement was small but unmistakable. A gasp went up from the people nearest to us. Phones were subtly lifted, screens glowing in the dim light. "Kale," I said, my voice low and cold, a shard of ice. We need to talk. Now. He forced a laugh, trying to play it off for the audience. Now. Sweetheart, we're in the middle of a party. Whatever it is, it can wait until we get home, can't it? No, I stated, the word final and absolute. It cannot. Right here. Lila made a move to slip away into the crowd. I'll just stay right where you are, Lila, I commanded, my glare pinning her in place. She froze, her face now as pale as her champagne dress. Kale's facade began to crumble. Alara, what is this about? You're causing a scene. Am I? I asked, my voice dripping with a sarcasm I didn't know I possessed. I'm causing a scene? Do you think I'm blind, Kale? Or do you just think I'm a fool? His face flushed a deep, ugly red. Have you lost your mind? What nonsense are you spouting at the company's annual gala? Nonsense. I let out a short, humorless laugh that cut through the air. I'm talking about you putting your hand up Lila's skirt 30 seconds after I won my award. That specific nonsense. The silence that followed was profound. It was the silence of a vacuum, of a breath held by 300 people at once. You could have heard a pin drop onto the plush carpet. Kale's jaw worked soundlessly. Lila looked like she was about to be sick. You're insane, Kale finally spat, his voice a strained whisper. You're jealous and paranoid and you're inventing things. Am I? I reached into the small clutch bag I carried. My fingers, steady despite the storm inside me, closed around my phone. Then let's not invent things. Let's get some facts. I'll call security right now and have them pull the surveillance footage from this corner of the room. Let's all see what the cameras saw. Would that settle it? The blood drained from Lila's face completely. He knew. She knew the cameras had a perfect angle. She looked at Kale with pure panic. Alara, please, she whispered, her voice trembling, layering on the victim act. Please let me explain. It's not what you think. Explain what? I fired back, my voice rising, finally allowing the anger to bleed through. Explain how you've been fucking my husband? Or how long this has been going on? Explain why a girl of 22 at the very start of her career and her life would choose to become a home-wrecking mistress. Tears welled in her eyes. Crocodile tears, I was sure. The crowd was utterly rapt, a hive of silent, scandalized voyeurs. I unlocked my phone, swiped through a few screens and then turned it to face them. On the display was a gallery of photos I had paid a private investigator to take just last week. There they were in high-resolution color. Kale and Lila in a passionate embrace by his desk after hours. Their bodies pressed together in the shadowy corner of the company parking garage. The two of them walking into the discreet, the Oberon Hotel, hand in hand. Each photo was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. Kale's face turned ashen. He had thought he was so careful, so clever. Alara, he breathed, all fight gone from him, replaced by a desperate pleading. Let's go somewhere private. We can discuss this. We can fix this. Fix this. I repeated, the words tasting like ash. Kale, there is no fixing this. There is no us to discuss. With a movement that felt both terrifying and liberating, I yanked the platinum wedding band from my finger. It felt loose, as if it had been waiting for this moment. I held it up for a second, letting the spotlight catch its cold, deceptive shine. Then with a flick of my wrist I threw it at him. It hit him square in the chest with a soft thud before clattering to the floor, rolling away under a table. Kale Sterling, I said, my voice ringing out clear and strong in the silent ballroom. We are done. I turned to Lila, who was shaking. As for you, Lila Rossi, consider your employment terminated. Do not come into the office tomorrow. HR will have your termination papers and your final check waiting. Clean out your desk tonight. You can't do that, she cried, a flash of her true entitled self breaking through the faux vulnerability. I can't. My voice rose to a crescendo. Could you do this to me? Did you think seducing the CEO's son would grant you immunity? Did you think it would fast-track your career? You are naive and pathetic. I finally turned to address the entire room, my colleagues, my subordinates, my peers. Their faces were a blur of shock, sympathy, and undisguised glee. Everyone, I announced, my heart hammering against my ribs. I apologize for ruining the party. But while I have your attention, there's something you should know. Effective tomorrow, I am resigning from my position as design director. A fresh wave of gasps swept the room. And I will be founding my own firm. A place where talent and integrity matter more than backstabbing and sleeping your way to the top. My core team will be coming with me. If you're interested in building something real, something based on respect, come and see me tomorrow. With that, I turned on my heel. I didn't look at Kale's shattered expression. I didn't look at Lila's tear-streaked face. I walked away from the wreckage of my old life, my head held high. Behind me, I heard Kale's desperate, choked call. Alara. Wait. I didn't look back. The performance was over. The real work was about to begin. The silence in my car was a physical presence, thick and heavy, after the explosive noise of the gala. I drove through the rain-slicked streets of the city, the neon lights blurring into streaks of color, my hands clenched on the steering wheel. There were no tears. Not yet. There was only a vast, numb emptiness, a quiet so profound it seemed to swallow the sound of the engine. I didn't go home. The penthouse Kale and I shared wasn't home anymore. It was a crime scene, a museum of a lie. Every piece of furniture, every piece of art we'd chosen together now felt tainted. I drove to a generic anonymous hotel downtown, paid in cash and locked myself in a room that smelled of bleach and air freshener. Sitting on the edge of the stiff bed, I finally allowed myself to process the cataclysm. The images flashed behind my eyes. Kale's hand, Lila's smirk, the horrified faces of the crowd. I replayed my own words, my actions with a detached sense of awe. Had that really been me? Alara Vance, the always composed, always in control perfectionist, causing a nuclear scene at the most important professional event of the year? A strange, wild laugh bubbled up in my throat. It felt good. Felt like the first real thing I'd felt in months. My phone, which I had silenced, was lit up like a Christmas tree. Dozens of missed calls from Kale. A few from unknown numbers. Probably reporters. Text messages piled up. Some from concerned colleagues, others from obvious gossip mongers fishing for details. I ignored them all. There was only one person I needed to speak to. I scrolled through my contacts and hit dial on Chloe. It rang twice before she picked up. Alara? Oh my God, are you okay? I've been hearing insane rumors. People are saying you had a meltdown at the gala and accused Kale of. It's true, I interrupted, my voice flat. All of it. I have photos, Chloe. He's been sleeping with Lila Rossi from the design team. A string of expletives, creative and venomous, exploded from the phone. Chloe Chin was my business partner, the head of our project management division and my oldest friend. She was fiercely loyal and had never liked Kale. That slimy, entitled piece of... I knew it. I knew something was off with him. Are you at home? Do you want me to come over? I'll bring wine. A lot of wine. I'm not home, I said. I'm at the Royce Hotel. Room 814. I'm on my way. 20 minutes. The line went dead. True to her word, there was a knock on my door 20 minutes later. Chloe stood there holding a bottle of expensive Burgundy in one hand and a bag of takeout in the other. She took one look at my face, still perfectly made up but utterly drained, and pulled me into a fierce hug. That bastard, she muttered into my hair. That absolute bastard. We sat on the floor, leaning against the bed, passing the wine bottle back and forth. I told her everything, from the first suspicious late night to the final horrifying moment under the stage lights. Chloe listened, her expression growing darker with every detail. The audacity. To do it there, of all places. On your birthday. In front of everyone. She shook her head. So, you really quit? And you're really starting your own firm? I am, I said, the conviction solidifying inside me. Vance Designs. No more answering to Kale or his father. No more office politics. Just pure good work. I looked at her. What about you? Chloe didn't even hesitate. She reached into her oversized purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to me. It was her letter of resignation, already written and printed. Effective immediately. I've been waiting for you to see the light, she said with a grim smile. I've had that drafted for 6 months. I'm not the only one. Jing, Liam and Xiaoyu are all in. They're ready to jump ship the second you give the word. I was stunned. They are. Alara, you're the heart of that company, Chloe said earnestly. Everyone knows it. Kale may have the last name, but you have the talent, the vision, and the respect. He's a bully and a credit stealer. People are loyal to you. The numbness began to recede, replaced by a surge of purpose. I wasn't alone. I had a team. I had a friend. I had a plan. We'll submit them together first thing tomorrow, I said, a new energy coursing through me. We spent the next few hours strategizing on hotel notepads, fueled by wine and righteous anger. We listed clients who were personally loyal to me. We sketched rough ideas for a business plan. We were so engrossed we barely noticed the dawn light beginning to filter through the blinds. At 9 a.m., we marched into Sterling Architects together, a united front. The office was eerily quiet. Conversations halted as we walked through the open-plan space. Everyone stared, their eyes wide with a mixture of pity, curiosity, and fear. We went straight to HR and handed over our resignation letters. The HR director, a nervous man named Robert, looked like he was about to have an aneurysm. "Ladies, please, let's not be hasty. Perhaps we can schedule a meeting with Mr. Sterling Sr. to discuss." "There's nothing to discuss, Robert," I said calmly. "My decision is final. Chloe's is final. We'll be clearing out our offices now." As we walked towards my office, the door to Kale's corner suite flew open. He looked wrecked. His usually immaculate suit was rumpled, his eyes bloodshot, his face pale and stubbled. He'd clearly been there all night. "Elara," he said, his voice hoarse. "Can we please talk?" Chloe moved to step between us, but I put a hand on her arm. "Go start packing my books," I said softly. She nodded and shot Kale a venomous look before disappearing into my office. I turned to Kale. "There's nothing to talk about. About last night. I can explain." "Explain what?" I asked, leaning against my doorframe. "Explain how you betrayed me, humiliated me, and ended our marriage in front of 300 of our colleagues? I think the footage speaks for itself, Kale." He flinched. "Lila and I, it was a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough to risk everything we built," I countered coldly. "We can start over," he pleaded, taking a step closer. The scent of stale whiskey clung to him. "I'll end it with her today. I swear. It's over." Actually laughed. It was a dry, brittle sound. "Start over? Do you think betrayal is a stain you can just wash out? You humiliated me, Kale. Publicly. You think I can just forgive that?" His expression hardened. "Elara, don't be cruel. We can work on this. We can fix it." "There is no us to fix," I said, stepping into my office. "I've already had my lawyer draw up the divorce papers. You'll be served later today. All I need from you is your signature." "I won't sign them," he said, following me in, his voice taking on a threatening edge. "Then we'll see each other in court," I replied, beginning to take the personal photos off my desk. A picture of my parents, one of Chloe and me on a hiking trip. I placed them in a cardboard box. "But let me remind you of something. The 30% stake in this company that you're so proud of? It was bought with my dowry. My design work. I'm taking my shares with me." His face darkened. "You can't do that." "I can and I will," I said, turning to face him. "Along with the client resources in my personal Rolodex. The copyrights to every major design I've created for the last 3 years. My team. I'm taking it all." The mask of the penitent husband fell away completely, revealing the ruthless businessman beneath. "You think you can survive out there without me?" he sneered. "Without the Sterling name behind you? Don't be naive. I'll make sure everyone in this industry knows you're unstable, a liability. No one will work with you." I looked at him, this man I had loved, and felt nothing but a cold, clean contempt. "Are you threatening me, Kale?" "I'm stating a fact." I smiled, then a small, sharp smile. "Well, here's a fact for you. I've already spoken to several of our key clients. They've all expressed their desire to continue working with me. Specifically with me." I paused, letting it sink in. "Including on the new Ethelgard Tower project." It was a lie, a gamble, but one based on truth. I knew Mr. Ethelgard respected my work above all else. Kale's face went deathly pale. The Ethelgard project was the lifeblood of the company for the next 2 years. Losing it would be catastrophic. You can't," he stammered. "I can," I said, my voice soft but final. "You made your choices, Kale. And I've made mine. From today onward, we are competitors." I picked up my box of belongings. It was surprisingly light. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a new company to launch." I walked out of the office, out of the building, and into my new future. Behind me I heard the sound of something, probably a glass paperweight, shattering against a wall. But it was a sound from another life. It had nothing to do with me anymore. The next month was a whirlwind of controlled chaos. While the gossip blogs feasted on the scandal of the Sterling marriage meltdown, I was too busy to pay them any mind. I channeled every ounce of my pain, anger, and betrayed energy into building something new, something that was entirely my own. I found a perfect space for Vance Designs in a sleek, modern building in the heart of the design district. It was, I noted with a slice of dark satisfaction, directly opposite the monolithic headquarters of Sterling Architects. Every morning, Kale would have to look out his window and see my name, Vance, etched in elegant steel on the building across the street. It was a constant, silent reminder of what he had lost. Chloe, true to her word, had mobilized the entire core team. Jing, our brilliant structural engineer, Liam, the maestro of interior spaces, and Xiaoyu, a whiz with sustainable tech and materials. They had all handed in their resignations within hours of mine. The mass exodus of top talent sent shockwaves through the industry, and I heard through the grapevine had sent Kale Sr. into a rage and Kale Jr. into a panic. Their flagship projects were suddenly adrift without their key architects. The fit-out of the new office was a cathartic process. We chose an open, airy layout with floor-to-ceiling windows that flooded the space with natural light. There were no corner offices, no hierarchies symbolized by walls. My desk was right in the thick of it, a central hub for collaboration. We painted the walls a warm, calming gray and brought in plants and art that inspired creativity, not corporate conformity. It felt like a place to breathe, to create, to be free. The day of the grand opening arrived. The sun was shining and the office buzzed with an electric mix of nerves and excitement. We had invited clients, colleagues, and press. To my astonishment and immense gratification, almost everyone came. The room was packed with well-wishers, curiosity seekers, and genuine supporters. Among the first to arrive was Mr. Ethelgard himself, a formidable titan of industry in his 70s. With a shock of white hair and a handshake that could crush bone. He found me in the crowd, a glass of champagne in his hand. "Ilara," he boomed, his voice cutting through the chatter. "This is impressive. Truly impressive." "Mr. Ethelgard, thank you for coming," I said, genuinely touched. "It means a great deal." "Nonsense," he waved a dismissive hand. "Talent is talent. I heard your old company is in a bit of a shambles. My project managers are nervous. Sterling Jr. is making a mess of things from what I hear. His focus seems scattered." I kept my expression neutral. "I'm sure Kale is doing his best." Mr. Ethelgard snorted. "His best isn't good enough for my tower. I'll be frank, Ilara. His firm has submitted a new proposal. The numbers are significantly lower than the initial estimates." I felt a knot of tension form in my stomach. Kale was undercutting me. He was desperate. "But," Mr. Ethelgard continued, leaning closer, "in business you get what you pay for. I don't hire based on the lowest bidder. I hire based on vision, on trust, on capability. I trust you. The Ethelgard Tower is yours. Let's discuss the new contract next week." The relief that washed over me was so profound I felt momentarily lightheaded. I had bluffed to Kale, and now, by some miracle, the bluff had become reality. "Thank you, sir. You won't regret it." "I know I won't," he said, clinking his glass against mine before moving away to talk to Chloe. I was still processing this monumental victory when Chloe hurried over, her excited expression morphing into one of annoyance. "Ilara, we have uninvited guests." I followed her gaze to the entrance. Standing there, looking wildly out of place amidst the celebration, were Kale and Lila. Kale was wearing his best power suit, trying to project an image of unflappable confidence. But it was a thin veneer. Lila clung to his arm, dressed in a new, obviously expensive designer dress, her hair and makeup perfect. She was playing the part of the supportive partner, but her eyes were wide with a mixture of awe and anxiety as she took in the successful scene. "What are they doing here?" Chloe hissed. "Protesting," I said calmly, though my heart had begun to hammer against my ribs. "They've come to put on a show. Let them come in." Chloe looked at me as if I'd lost my mind. "Are you serious?" "Deadly serious," I said. "Let's see what they have to say." I made my way through the crowd, a fixed smile on my face. "Kale. Lila. What a surprise." I didn't see your names on the guest list. Kale forced a smile. Elara. Congratulations on the new space. It's cozy. His tone was condescending, meant to diminish. Thank you, I said, refusing to take the bait. We find it inspiring. Hi Elara, Lila chirped, her voice saccharine sweet. I just love what you've done with the place. So maybe one day I'll get to learn from you here. I raised an eyebrow. Learn design. Yes, she said, blinking innocently. Kale says I have a real natural talent for it. Is that so? I replied, my voice flat. Well, it's a tough industry. It requires more than just natural talent. It requires integrity. Hard work. Lila's smile tightened. I'm a hard worker. I'm sure you are, I said, my meaning clear. She flushed. Kale cut in, trying to steer the conversation. Elara, I'm actually here to discuss business. Oh. I led them away from the main crowd towards a slightly quieter corner. What business could we possibly have? The Ethelgard project, he said, getting straight to the point. I want you to withdraw from the bidding. I almost laughed. And why would I do that? Because my firm needs it more, he said, his voice low and intense. You're just starting out. You have plenty of time to build your reputation. This one project won't make or break you. But for us, it's crucial for our future stability. The sheer audacity took my breath away. So your solution to saving the company you drove into the ground through your own incompetence and unprofessionalism is to ask me, the person you betrayed, to bail you out? I'll make it worth your while, he pressed, ignoring my jab. Name your price. I'll pay you to walk away. 10 million. I stared at him. 10 million was a laughable sum compared to the value and prestige of the Ethelgard project. It was an insult. Kale, your proposal is fascinating, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. But I decline. Elara, be reasonable. I am being reasonable, I interrupted. I'm being a businesswoman. And as a businesswoman, I'm telling you that the project is already mine. Mr. Ethelgard and I signed the contract an hour ago. The color drained from Kale's face. That's impossible. He said he was considering our proposal. Considering isn't accepting, I said coldly. This is business, Kale. I won. You lost. Accept it with some grace. Lila, seeing Kale's crumbling composure, tugged on his sleeve. Kale, maybe we should just go. Shut up, he snapped at her, shaking off her hand. His eyes were blazing with anger now, all pretense gone. You did this on purpose. You're trying to destroy me. To get revenge. Destroy you. I laughed, a short, sharp sound. Kale, you think far too highly of yourself. I'm simply running my business. You're the one who seems hell-bent on self-destruction. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have guests to attend to. I turned to leave. Elara, Vance, you'll regret this, he spat, his voice trembling with rage. I stopped and looked back at him, at the pathetic picture they made. Him red-faced and furious, her frightened and out of her depth. The only thing I regret, I said, my voice clear and carrying, is that I ever wasted a single second of my life on someone like you. With that, I walked away, leaving them standing there, humiliated and defeated in the middle of my triumph. The crowd, which had been pretending not to watch, erupted into applause as I rejoined them. The performance was over. The villains had been vanquished. For now. The success of Vance Designs was a swift and undeniable force in the industry. With the Ethelgard Tower secured and a string of loyal clients following me from sterling architects, we were not just surviving, we were thriving. The office hummed with positive energy, a stark contrast to the toxic atmosphere we had left behind. Meanwhile, the news from across the street grew increasingly grim. Sterling Architects was unraveling at the seams. The loss of its core design team and its flagship project had triggered a cascade of failures. Key partners, nervous about the company's stability and Kale's damaged reputation, began pulling out of deals. The industry gossip mill churned out stories of plummeting morale, missed deadlines, and financial troubles. Chloe kept me updated with a certain grim satisfaction. Rumor is Old Man Sterling is furious. He's pulled back from semi-retirement and is micromanaging Kale into the ground. They've had to lay off 15% of their staff. I felt a twinge of sympathy for the employees, but none for Kale. He had made his bed. Now he was lying in it, surrounded by the ruins of his entitlement. A month after the opening, I was in my office, reviewing structural schematics with Jing when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Elara Vance, I answered, my tone professional. Elara. It's me. Kale's voice was ragged, exhausted. He sounded like a different man. I was silent for a moment. How did you get this number? You blocked my old one, he said simply. Elara, we need to talk. About the divorce. I sat back in my chair, waving for Jing to give me a moment. She nodded and slipped quietly out of the room. There's nothing to talk about, I said, my voice cool. The papers are with my lawyer. Sign them and we can both move on. I will, he said, and the defeat in his voice was palpable. I've accepted it. There's no going back for us. The admission surprised me. This wasn't the angry, threatening Kale from the opening. This was broken. What do you want, Kale? Time, he whispered. Just give me 1 month. 1 month to try and stabilize the company, to handle the fallout. Then we'll finalize the paperwork. I considered it. A month was nothing in the grand scheme of things. And his cooperation would make the process much smoother than a protracted legal battle. Okay, I agreed. 1 month. But on one condition. Anything. No contact. Unless it's absolutely necessary and related to the legal dissolution of our marriage, I don't want to hear from you. No calls, no emails, no surprise visits. Are we clear? He was quiet for a long time. Crystal, he finally said, his voice thick with an emotion I couldn't and didn't want to identify. Goodbye, Kale. I hung up and sat staring at the phone for a long time. The conversation had left me unsettled. The victory felt hollow, tinged with an unexpected melancholy. I shook it off. Melancholy was a luxury I couldn't afford. I had a company to run. The month passed quickly, filled with the exhilarating chaos of building a business. We landed 2 more major projects and I hired 3 new talented designers. The future was bright, a stark contrast to the storm clouds gathering over sterling architects. Financial news sites began running speculative pieces about a potential takeover or even bankruptcy. The day after the month-long grace period ended, I called my lawyer. Draw up the final papers, I instructed. It's time. I arrived at the courthouse precisely on time for our appointment. Kale was already there, waiting on a hard wooden bench in the hallway. He looked like a ghost of his former self. He had lost a significant amount of weight. His suit hung loosely on his frame and his eyes were hollow and shadowed. The arrogance was completely gone, replaced by a profound weariness. The process was swift, cold, and bureaucratic. Forms were signed, stamps were applied. In less than 30 minutes, the legal bond that had tied us for 5 years was severed. I held the final decree of divorce in my hands. It was just a piece of paper, but it felt like the weight of the world had been lifted from my shoulders. We walked out of the courthouse together into the weak afternoon sun, 2 strangers bound only by a painful history. Elara, he said, stopping me before I could walk to my car. I want to apologize. For everything. For the hurt I caused you. I looked at him, at the genuine remorse in his eyes, and for the first time I felt no anger. Just a distant, weary pity. I accept your apology, Kale, I said quietly. But it doesn't change anything. It doesn't erase what you did. I know, he nodded, a bitter smile touching his lips. I just needed you to hear it. I hope you find happiness, Elara. I really do. I will, I said, and I meant it. That's good, he said softly. That's enough for me. I got into my car and drove away. I didn't look back in the rearview mirror. It was over. Truly over. 2 days later, my phone rang early in the morning. It was a number from the city hospital. Ms. Vance? This is Nurse Williams from County General. You're listed as the emergency contact for Kale Sterling. He was brought in last night following a car accident. His condition is serious. My blood ran cold. An accident? Is he? He's in stable condition now, but he's unconscious. He suffered a significant head trauma. You might want to come down. I drove to the hospital in a daze, my emotions a tangled mess. Why was I still his emergency contact? Why did I feel compelled to go? He was nothing to me now. Yet I found myself walking through the sterile, antiseptic-smelling corridors to the ICU. Outside his room I found Lila. She was curled in a plastic chair, her face puffy and bare of makeup, her expensive clothes rumpled. She looked young, scared, and utterly lost. When she saw me, she flinched as if I'd struck her. "Elara," she whispered. What are you doing here?" "The hospital called me," I said, sitting. The hospital corridor was a tunnel of fluorescent light and hushed, anxious sounds. Lila Rossi looked up at me from the plastic chair, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and fear. In her rumpled state, without the armor of makeup and designer clothes, she seemed like a child playing dress-up in a tragedy far too adult for her. "The hospital called me," I repeated, my voice flat. "I'm still listed as his emergency contact." "What happened?" Lila swallowed hard, her hands twisting in her lap. "A car accident. Last night. He wasn't himself. He'd been drinking. The doctor said he lost control on the wet road, hit a barrier." Her voice trembled. "Spataler. There was a head injury. They had to do surgery to relieve the swelling. He's stable but," she trailed off, fresh tears welling in her eyes. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. Not like this. Despite everything, the thought of Kale broken and alone in a hospital bed was a horrifying, bleak conclusion. "I'm sorry," Lila whispered, the words barely audible. I looked at her, this girl who had been the instrument of my destruction and was now the sole witness to his. "Sorry for what?" "For the accident. For everything," she said, her voice cracking. "For ruining your marriage. I know it was wrong. I knew it then. I was just flattered. He was powerful and he paid attention to me. I thought it would make my life easier." It was the most honest thing she had ever said to me. There was no performance now, no calculated innocence. Just a raw, pathetic confession. "It made your life easier?" I asked, not with malice but with a genuine, weary curiosity. She shook her head, a sob escaping her. "No. It ruined it. It ruined everything. He's been a mess, Elara. Drinking all the time. Miserable. He talks about you constantly when he's drunk. Says he regrets it. Says you were the best thing that ever happened to him." The words should have felt like vindication. Instead they felt like ashes. A wave of complicated, unwelcome emotion washed over me. Pity, regret, and a distant, residual ache for the man I had once loved, now reduced to this shambolic figure. "Lila," I said, my tone softer than I intended. "You're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't waste it on a man who doesn't love you, who is destroying himself. This isn't your responsibility to fix." "But I love him," she cried, the words sounding hollow and rehearsed even to her own ears, I could tell. "Do you?" I asked gently. "Or do you love the idea of what he represented? The status? The shortcut?" She had no answer. She just cried harder, a lost, lonely figure in the unforgiving hospital light. Just then the door to the ICU room opened and a doctor in blue scrubs emerged. He looked tired. "Family for Mr. Sterling?" Lila and I both stood. "I'm his old friend," Lila said weakly. "I'm his ex-wife," I said, the term still foreign on my tongue. The doctor nodded, not batting an eye at the strange dynamic. "The surgery was successful. We've managed to control the swelling. He's out of immediate danger." We both exhaled breaths we didn't realize we'd been holding. "However," the doctor continued, his expression grave, "the impact to the frontal and temporal lobes was significant. He's regaining consciousness, but we're observing some concerning cognitive effects." "What kind of effects?" I asked. "Confusion, disorientation, and most notably memory loss." "Memory loss?" Lila echoed. "It's not uncommon with this type of trauma," the doctor explained. "His memory of the accident itself is completely gone, which is standard. But his recall of events leading up to it is also fragmented. In fact, based on his initial responses, it seems he has no memory of the past, 12 to 14 months. Lila and I exchanged a look. 12 to 14 months. That encompassed their entire affair, the gala, the divorce, everything. "Will it come back?" I asked. "It's impossible to say," the doctor said with a shrug. "Sometimes memory returns in pieces. Sometimes it doesn't. The brain is a mysterious thing. He's awake now, but he's very confused. You can see him, but keep it brief." Lila looked at me, a strange, calculating glint appearing through her tears. "Elara, you should go. He'll want to see you." "No," I said firmly. "He's your responsibility now, Lila. I'm not going in there." "But he's asking for you," she insisted. The nurses said he's been mumbling your name. Then you need to be the one to set him straight, I said, my resolve hardening. This was not my mess to clean up. This is your chance, Lila. A real one. He's forgotten the worst of it. He's a blank slate. If you really love him, be there for him. Help him. But don't do it based on a lie. When he's stronger, tell him the truth. All of it. If what you have is real, it will survive that. I turned to leave. I had done my duty. I had come. Seeing him would only drag me back into a past I had fought so hard to escape. Elara, wait. Lila called out. I stopped but didn't turn around. Thank you, she said softly. I didn't answer. I just walked away, leaving the hospital and its ghosts behind me. My future was waiting. The future arrived the next morning in the form of a sleek black town car that pulled up outside Vance Designs. 3 impeccably dressed men from a renowned Hong Kong investment firm, Jade Dragon Capital, were here for our meeting. Chloe was buzzing with nervous energy, her usual cool replaced by a giddy excitement. This is it, Elara, she whispered as we rode the elevator up to our office. The big leagues. If they buy in, we can go international. Like really international. The meeting was held in our conference room, which offered a stunning, almost mocking view of the Sterling Architects building across the street. Mr. Shin, the lead representative, was a man of few words but intense focus. He listened as I presented our portfolio, our business plan, our vision for a design firm that prioritized innovation and ethical practice. Your work is exceptional, Ms. Vance, Mr. Shin said, his accent crisp and precise. The Ethelgard Tower is a landmark. But we invest in more than buildings. We invest in people. In leadership. We've heard rumors about the circumstances of your departure from your previous firm. I met his gaze steadily. The circumstances are a matter of public record, Mr. Shin. My former partner made personal choices that compromised our professional partnership. I chose to build something new with a foundation of integrity. My team followed me because they believe in that vision. I gestured to Chloe, Jing, Liam, and Xiaoyu, who were all sitting proudly around the table. Mr. Shin's stern expression didn't change, but he gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. A tree dies when transplanted, but a person thrives when moving on, he quoted. A wise proverb. We believe you will thrive, Ms. Vance. My firm is prepared to offer Vance Designs an initial investment of $50 million for a 25% stake. We will provide not only capital but also access to our network across Asia. I kept my composure, but internally my heart was hammering. 50 million. It was more than I had dared hope for. We accept, Mr. Shin, I said, my voice firm. Happy cooperation. Happy cooperation, he echoed, and for the first time a small smile touched his lips. As we shook hands, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Nothing could break this moment. But the calls kept coming. Later, as we were celebrating with the team, Chloe pulled me aside, her face concerned. It's Lila, she said, handing me her phone. She says it's urgent. I sighed, my good mood dimming. I took the phone. Lila, what is it? He's awake, Elara, she said, her voice strangely calm. And he doesn't remember. Anything. Not the divorce. Not me. He thinks you're still his wife. He's asking for you. I closed my eyes. The past was like a stubborn ghost, refusing to be exorcised. Lila, I told you. That's not my problem. I know, she said, and there was a new steel in her voice. And I'm handling it. I told him I'm his nurse. I just thought you should know. I won't bother you again. She hung up. I stood there for a moment, the sounds of celebration fading around me. Kale had lost a year of his life. He'd lost the memory of his betrayal, his humiliation, his failure. In a way, he'd gotten the clean slate he'd begged me for. He could start over, unburdened by the guilt of what he'd done. And I was starting over too, but I was doing it the hard way. I was carrying every scar, every lesson, every painful memory with me. And as I looked around at my thriving company, my brilliant team, and the signed contract for $50 million on the table, I knew with absolute certainty that my way was better. I handed the phone back to Chloe. Everything okay? She asked. Everything is perfect, I said, and for the first time I truly believed it. I walked back to my team, to my future, and left the echo of the past behind. The investment from Jade Dragon Capital was a rocket booster strapped to Vance Designs. We expanded our office, hired more talent, and began pitching for, and winning, international projects. The Ethelgard Tower was rising steadily, a gleaming testament to our work, its progress a daily rebuke to the stagnant silence from across the street. Sterling Architects, according to industry whispers, was on life support, kept afloat only by the dwindling resources of Kale's father. I was too busy to dwell on it. My life was a whirlwind of site visits, client meetings, and design charrettes. I had successfully boxed up the entire Kale Sterling chapter of my life and stored it away in a dark, distant corner of my mind. Or so I thought. The first sign that the ghost wasn't gone was subtle. I'd be at my favorite coffee shop, and I'd catch a glimpse of a familiar trench coat disappearing around a corner. I'd be driving home, and a car that looked like his would linger in my rearview mirror for a few blocks too long. I dismissed it as paranoia, the lingering nerves from a traumatic experience. But then it became undeniable. He began appearing outside my office building. Not approaching, not speaking. Just standing there across the street, a silent, gaunt sentinel. He'd lost so much weight his clothes hung off him. His face was pale and shadowed, his eyes hollow pits fixed on our entrance. He would stand there for hours in all weather, immovable. "Elara, he's back," Chloe would say, her voice tight with annoyance, peering through the blinds. "Ignore him," I'd reply, my own stomach clenching. "He'll get bored eventually." But he didn't. Day after day, week after week. He became a fixture, a dark rumor given form. My employees started to notice, whispering behind their hands. Clients would ask awkwardly if everything was all right. The media, ever hungry for a follow-up to the scandal, began sniffing around, taking surreptitious photos of the tragic, jilted husband keeping his lonely vigil. It was bad for business. It was worse for my peace of mind. "We should call the police," Chloe insisted one afternoon after we'd had a potential client from out of town visibly unnerved by the specter outside. "This is harassment. He's stalking you." "And say what?" I argued, frustration boiling over. "That my ex-husband is standing on a public sidewalk? He's not doing anything illegal, Chloe. He's just there." His presence was a form of psychological warfare. It was a constant, nagging reminder, a thumb pressed on a bruise that refused to heal. He was trying to wear me down, to force a confrontation, to insert himself back into my narrative. After a particularly grueling day, I decided I'd had enough. I marched out of the building, my heels clicking with purpose on the pavement. I crossed the street directly toward him. He didn't move, but his eyes, those hollow eyes, tracked my every step. "What do you want, Kale?" I demanded, stopping a few feet from him. My voice was colder than the evening air. He flinched at my tone as if I'd struck him. "I just want to talk to you, Elara. We have nothing to talk about. Your little performance is starting to affect my business. It needs to stop." "I can't stop," he whispered, and the raw pain in his voice was startling. "I remember everything now. The accident, it jolted something loose. I remember it all. What I did. What I lost. I can't live with it. So your solution is to make my life unbearable?" I shot back, though a part of me recoiled at his desperation. "This isn't an apology, Kale. This is selfishness. You're not here for me, you're here to alleviate your own guilt. Well, I'm not your penance. I want to make amends," he pleaded, taking a step forward. I took a sharp step back. The distance between us was a chasm he could never cross. "I want to start over." Start over. The absurdity of it took my breath away. "Kale, look at me. Look at what I've built without you. My life is full. It is happy. It is moving forward at 1,000 miles an hour. You are a part of my past. A painful part one have no desire to revisit. There is no starting over. There is only you moving on and leaving me alone." "I can't move on," he said, his voice breaking. "You're everywhere. In this city, in my mind. I lost you, Elara. I lost the best thing I ever had." For a fleeting second I saw not the arrogant cheat, not the broken stalker, but the man I'd once fallen in love with. Charming, ambitious, flawed. The ghost of that man was standing before me, begging for a salvation I could not and would not give. My anger softened, replaced by a firm, unwavering resolve. "Kale, listen to me. This isn't love. This is obsession. This is sickness. You need help. Professional help. Not me. I cannot fix you. I will not destroy the life I've built to drown in the wreckage of the one you destroyed. I turned to go. My words felt final, the ultimate dismissal. I won't give up, he called out, his voice trembling but stubborn. Even if you hate me, I won't give up on us. I didn't look back. There is no us, I said to the empty air in front of me and walked away. The next day he was there again. And the day after that. His presence became a grim constant. I doubled down on my work, using it as a shield. We were preparing for the biggest opportunity of our careers, the prestigious International Design and Innovation Awards in Singapore. Winning there would cement our place on the global stage. It was the perfect distraction, a goal so consuming it left no room for ghosts. A week before we were due to leave, an unexpected visitor arrived at my office. Lila Rossi. She looked different. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced by a simple, neat blouse and slacks. She looked tired but clear-eyed. The calculated innocence had been replaced by a weary maturity. "Elara," she said when my assistant showed her in. "I know I'm the last person you want to see, but I need to talk to you. It's about Kale." I gestured for her to sit. "If you're here to plead his case, you're wasting your time." "I'm not," she said, shaking her head. "I'm here because I'm worried. Seriously worried. His mental state, it's deteriorating. After you spoke to him last week, he just collapsed. He won't leave his house. He doesn't eat, doesn't sleep. He just sits in the dark, surrounded by photos of you. The doctors say it's a severe depressive episode. He's talking about not wanting to go on." She was genuinely frightened. The rivalry, the jealousy, it had all been burned away by the reality of his collapse. "Lila, I'm sorry he's suffering," I said, and I meant it. "But I am not a therapist. My presence in his life would be the worst possible thing for him. It would feed his delusion that there's a way back." "I'm not asking you to take him back," she insisted. "I'm asking you to help me make him let go. Just talk to him. One conversation. Make him see that it's truly over. That he has to accept it and get help. He might listen to you. He won't listen to me or anyone else." I looked at her, at the desperate concern on her face. He loved him. However misguided, however flawed, it was real. And she was watching him self-destruct. I thought of the man standing in the rain. I thought of the hollow eyes. I thought of the years we'd shared. And despite everything, I knew I couldn't let him destroy himself without trying to throw him a lifeline. Not for him. For me. So I could truly say I had done everything I could. I sighed, the fight going out of me. 1 hour, I said. That's all. Relief flooded her features. Thank you, Elara. Thank you. That evening I drove to the villa we had once shared. Felt like walking into a tomb. The air was stale and thick with dust and despair. Lila led me to the study. Kale was sitting in an armchair in the dark, a single lamp illuminating a stack of photo albums on his lap. He looked up as I entered. The hope that flashed in his eyes was the most painful thing I'd ever seen. "Elara," he breathed as if seeing a mirage. "I came because Lila is worried about you," I said, my voice neutral, staying near the door. "And because I need you to hear this once and for all. This has to stop, Kale. Your life doesn't have to be over because our marriage is." He listened, his head bowed as I told him what I needed to say. That I forgave him not for his sake but for my own peace. That I accepted his apology but that it changed nothing. That the door between us was closed, locked, and sealed forever. That he needed to seek help to find a way to live for himself, not for the ghost of us. I spoke without malice, without anger, only with a firm, unshakable finality. When I finished, he was crying silent tears. He didn't argue. He didn't plead. He just nodded. "I understand," he whispered. "Thank you for coming." "Be well, Kale," I said. And I left. As I walked out into the clean night air, I felt a chapter of my life slam shut with an echoing, definitive thud. It was finally, truly over. I was free. The next day I boarded a plane to Singapore with my team, ready to conquer the world, leaving the ghost of my past behind me. Singapore was a revelation. A city of impossible greenery and soaring, futuristic architecture that felt like a living embodiment of our design philosophy. The air hummed with a different energy, international, ambitious, electric. For the first time in months, the shadow of Kale Sterling didn't just feel distant. It felt erased, wiped clean by the equatorial sun and the sheer force of forward momentum. The International Design and Innovation Awards were held at the spectacular Marina Bay Sands. The convention center was a cathedral of modern design, buzzing with the most talented architects and firms from across the globe. The atmosphere was a heady mix of fierce competition and collegial respect. We were newcomers, underdogs, but the buzz around Vance Designs was palpable. Our dramatic origin story had preceded us, adding a layer of intrigue to our work. Our entry, the Viridian Nexus, was more than a building. It was a statement. A residential and commercial complex designed as a vertical ecosystem, seamlessly integrating renewable energy, water reclamation and biophilic design that brought the forest canopy into the sky. It was bold, beautiful and, according to the preliminary whispers, a frontrunner. The days were a whirlwind of presentations, networking events and intense judging sessions. I stood before panels of my lifelong idols, presenting our vision with a clarity and passion that came from having fought for it tooth and nail. Chloe, Jing, Liam and Xiaoyu were flawless, each presenting their components with an expertise that left no room for doubt. We were a united front, a phoenix that had not just risen from the ashes, but had been forged stronger in the fire. The final gala was a spectacle of glittering lights and elegant gowns. As we took our seats at the Vance Designs table, the air was thick with anticipation. I clasped Chloe's hand under the table. Her palm was as sweaty as mine. The host, a renowned architect himself, took the stage. The awards for sustainability, innovation, and residential design were announced. We won them all. Each time our name was called, a jolt of pure, undiluted joy shot through me. We climbed the stage, accepted the heavy crystal trophies, and gave speeches that thanked our team, our investors, and the city that had given us a chance. Then came the final award. The pinnacle. The Best in Show Grand Prix. The winner of this year's top honor, the host said, drawing out the suspense, is a firm that proves vision and integrity are the most powerful materials in any architect's toolkit. From the United States for their groundbreaking Viridian Nexus. Vance Designs. The roar of the crowd was deafening. We surged to our feet, a tangled, laughing, crying mess of hugs and congratulations. This was it. The validation. We had done it. I had done it. Not as Kale Sterling's wife, but as Alara Vance, CEO and principal architect of her own world-class firm. Standing at the podium holding the grand prize trophy, looking out at the sea of applauding faces, I felt a peace I had never known. The past was not just behind me. It was a necessary foundation for this moment. The pain had been the price of admission to this stage. Thank you, I said, my voice clear and strong, echoing through the hall. This award isn't just for a building. It's for the belief that we can build better, not just structures but futures. It's for my incredible team who took a leap of faith with me. And it's for anyone who has ever been told to settle, to stay quiet, to accept less than they deserve. Don't. Build your own table. And make it extraordinary. The aftermath was a blur of champagne, business cards, and interview requests. Representatives from European and Asian firms I had admired for years were now seeking us out, eager for collaboration. Mr. Shen from Jade Dragon Capital found me in the crowd, his usually stoic face split by a wide grin. A phenomenal success, Ms. Vance, he said, raising his glass. Our investment appears to have been a wise one. The world is now your canvas. We stayed in Singapore for another week, solidifying the connections we'd made. The Vance Designs team was no longer a plucky startup. We were a global player. The future was a dazzling, wide-open road. We returned home as conquering heroes. The local press covered our win with front-page headlines. Local firm conquers world stage. Vance Designs, from scandal to triumph. The office was filled with flowers and congratulatory gifts. The mood was euphoric. It was in the middle of this euphoria, as I was reviewing the staggering number of new project inquiries, that my office phone rang. My assistant's voice was uncharacteristically somber. Alara, there's a gentleman on the line. A Mr. Albright. From the law firm Albright and Shaw. He says it's urgent. A cold trickle of foreboding cut through my warm glow. Lawyers never brought good news. Put him through. Ms. Vance, a calm, professional voice inquired. Thank you for taking my call. I am the executor of the estate of Kale Sterling. The world tilted on its axis. Estate. The word hung in the air, cold and final. What are you talking about? I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. I regret to inform you that Mr. Sterling was found deceased in his home last night, Mr. Albright said, his tone devoid of emotion. The preliminary investigation suggests an accidental overdose of prescription medication, likely mixed with alcohol. The police are investigating, but foul play is not suspected. I sank into my chair, the leather groaning in the profound silence. Dead. The word was impossible. He was a force, a constant even in his absence. A nuisance, a ghost, a regret, but not a void. Ms. Vance? Are you still there? Yes, I choked out. Why are you calling me? We're divorced. Indeed, Mr. Albright continued. However, Mr. Sterling never amended his will following your divorce. You remain the sole beneficiary of his entire estate. This includes his real estate holdings, his stock portfolio, his remaining shares in Sterling Architects, and his personal assets. The total valuation is approximately $80 million. $80 million. The number was so absurd it was meaningless. It was blood money. Guilt money. The final, grotesque transaction in our failed marriage. I don't want it, I said, the words rushing out. I don't want any of it. That is, of course, your prerogative, the lawyer replied smoothly. You may disclaim the inheritance. However, I would strongly advise you to seek independent legal counsel before making such a decision. The tax implications alone are complex. There is also the matter of his outstanding debts and the dissolution of his company, which his estate is now responsible for. The weight of it all crashed down on me. Kale's final act was to bind me to him forever, to tether my hard-won success to the tragic wreckage of his life. It was the ultimate selfishness, the ultimate lack of closure. What about Lila Rossi? I asked, suddenly remembering her. The young woman he was associated with? Mr. Albright's tone conveyed his disapproval. She is not mentioned in the will. She has no claim. Of course she didn't. He had used her and discarded her even in death. My pity for her returned in a sickening wave. I need time, I said, my head spinning. Of course. I will forward all the relevant documents. Please accept my condolences for your loss. The line went dead. Condolences. Did I feel loss? I felt a maelstrom of emotions. Shock, anger, pity, and a deep, profound sadness for the wasted life, for the man who had so much and valued so little. Chloe found me minutes later, staring blankly at the skyline. When I told her, her face went pale. Oh, Ilara, she whispered, pulling me into a hug. That bastard. Even in death, he's complicating your life. What do I do, Chloe? I asked, feeling like a lost child. What do I do with this poisoned inheritance? She held me at arm's length, her expression fierce. You take it. You take every last penny. And you turn it into something good. You said it yourself, build something better. You wanted to chain you to his past? Use it to build your future. Our future. Her words were a lifeline. He was right. Rejecting it was a gesture, but it wouldn't help anyone. It would just dissolve into lawyers' fees and government coffers. But accepting it came with a responsibility. The funeral was a small, bleak affair. Kale's father, a broken, aged man, barely looked at me. A handful of former colleagues attended, their faces masks of shock and morbid curiosity. Lila was there, sitting alone in the back row, dressed in black, her face a blank page of grief. She looked at me once, her eyes filled with a confusion and pain that mirrored my own. We were two women bound to the same tragedy, yet utterly alone in it. I didn't stay long. I paid my respects to the shell of the man I once loved and left. As I walked away from the grave, a resolve solidified within me. I wouldn't let his death be just a sordid footnote. I wouldn't let his money be a curse. I called a meeting with my core team and my lawyers the next day. I'm accepting the inheritance, I announced. But I'm not keeping it. We're going to use it to establish a foundation. The Kale Sterling Foundation. There was a moment of stunned silence. What? Chloe exclaimed. After everything he did? Not for him, I said firmly. In spite of him. The foundation will be dedicated to supporting two things: mental health initiatives for professionals in high-stress industries, and scholarships for underprivileged students pursuing degrees in architecture and design. We'll fund counseling, provide grants, create opportunities. We'll take this money born from pain and failure, and we'll use it to prevent others from following his path. We'll use it to nurture real talent, not just buy it. I looked around the table at my team, my family. This is how we build something better. Slowly, Chloe began to smile. It was a smile of understanding, of pride. Jing, Liam, and Xiaoyu nodded their agreement. It was the right thing to do. The only thing to do. The past was finally truly laid to rest. Not forgotten but transformed. The pain had been the foundation. The betrayal the fuel. The victory the structure. And now the legacy, his legacy and mine intertwined forever, would be one of redemption and hope. I had conquered the world stage. Now I would use the spoils of my personal war to make that world a little brighter. The design was complete. A year is a long time in the life of a company moving at the speed of light. For Vance Designs, it was a period of unprecedented growth and solidified reputation. The gold medal from Singapore was not just a trophy in a glass case. It was a key that unlocked doors across the globe. We were no longer the plucky startup with a scandalous past. We were the innovative wunderkinds, the ones to watch. Our new headquarters, funded by our success and not a penny of Kale's money, took up 2 full floors in a gleaming new eco-tower. The space was a manifestation of our Viridian Nexus philosophy, living walls of greenery, natural light cascading through cleverly placed apertures, open collaborative spaces that buzzed with creative energy. My desk was still in the middle of it all, a central hub, but now the hum around me was the sound of over 50 employees, a symphony of ambition and talent. The Kale Sterling Foundation, however, was my true passion project. It had taken 6 months of meticulous work with lawyers and financial advisors to structure it properly, ensuring the funds were used exactly as intended, a bulwark against the cynicism that often accompanies large sums of money. We had a dedicated board, comprising myself, Chloe, a renowned psychologist, and the head of a prominent urban planning charity. We launched the foundation quietly without fanfare. There were no press releases trading on Kale's tragic end. Instead, we reached out directly to universities and industry associations. The response was overwhelming. The first round of scholarships was awarded to 20 brilliant students from backgrounds that would have otherwise made architecture school a distant dream. The Mental Health Initiative partnered with firms to provide confidential, subsidized counseling for architects and engineers, breaking the stoic silence that often plagued our high-stress industry. It was this work that finally brought me a sense of peace about Kale. The money was no longer a poisoned chalice. It was a tool for good. His name, which had once been a brand of betrayal, was being reborn as a symbol of second chances and support. It was the redemption he could never find for himself, and in granting it, I felt the last lingering chains of our history fall away. One crisp autumn afternoon, I was in my office, reviewing the architectural plans for our first international project, a cultural center in Oslo. The light was fading, casting long golden shadows across my desk. There was a soft knock on my door frame. It was Chloe. She leaned against the door, a folder in her hand, a contented smile on her face. "You're going to want to see this," she said, tossing the folder onto my desk. It was the first annual report for the foundation. Inside were profiles of the scholarship recipients. A young woman from rural Kansas who designed shelters for climate refugees. A first-generation immigrant from Jordan whose designs incorporated ancient cooling techniques into modern structures. There were testimonials from professionals who had used our counseling services, speaking about the relief of finding support without stigma. "We did good, Alara," Chloe said softly, her eyes shining. "Really good." I looked from the report to the vibrant, busy office outside my glass walls, and then to the cityscape beyond. The Sterling Architects building across the street had a new logo on it. It had been acquired 6 months prior by a larger conglomerate and folded into their brand. The last ghost had been exorcised. "We did," I agreed, my heart full. "All of us." My phone buzzed, a calendar reminder. I had a meeting with the first recipient of the Kale Sterling Design Innovation Grant. I grabbed my jacket. "Hot date," Chloe teased. "Better," I said. "The future." I took the elevator down to the lobby, where a young man in a slightly too big suit was waiting nervously, clutching a portfolio. He couldn't have been older than 20. His name was Matteo, and his proposal was for a community hub built from upcycled materials in his underserved neighborhood. "Miss Vance," he said, his voice full of awe. It's an honor to meet you. The honor is mine, Matteo, I said, shaking his hand. I've seen your sketches. They're brilliant. Tell me about your vision. As he spoke, his nerves melting away into passion, his eyes lighting up as he explained his designs, I saw it. The raw, unspoiled talent. The drive to build something beautiful and meaningful. It was a reflection. Not of Kale but of myself all those years ago, full of dreams and untouched by cynicism. This was the legacy. Not the trophies, not the skyscrapers with my name on them, not the magazine covers. It was this. Nurturing the next generation. Breaking the cycles of silence and struggle. Using the past not as an anchor but as a foundation. After the meeting I walked outside. The city was alive with the evening rush. I stood on the sidewalk looking up at the Vance Designs logo on our building. It represented everything I had fought for, everything I had built from the ashes of a life I never asked to leave behind. I thought of Kale then, not with anger or pity, but with a quiet, distant sadness for the man who could never see this, who could never understand that happiness wasn't something you took from others, but something you built for yourself. The journey had been brutal. It had been paved with betrayal, public humiliation, heartbreak, and death. It had demanded every ounce of my strength, my resilience, and my faith. There were scars that would never fully fade. But as I looked around at the city I loved, at the company I had built, at the future I was helping to design for others, I knew with absolute certainty that I would not change a single step of the path I had walked. The pain had been the price, but the freedom, the self-respect, the purpose, that was the reward. A tree dies when transplanted. But a person can thrive. They can grow new roots, stronger and deeper than before. They can reach for the sun not in spite of the damage but because of it. They can become a shelter for others, a testament to the fact that even from the darkest soil, the most beautiful things can grow. I took a deep breath of the cool evening air, turned my back on the ghosts and walked inside, ready for whatever came next.